is Tuesday, and we are down to kind of down to the wire of, you see the shopping malls are bustling, the grocery stores are bustling. People have already started their travel, which we know that really Thanksgiving is the most traveled holiday, but this particular holiday is a heavy travel day, as well as the next coming few days. So I highly suggest everyone pack your patience, pack your kindness. For sure, you're going to need it. Because delays they're inevitable, and you can't get around that. And that's something that you really, kind of have to triumph over. You have to kind of figure out and re-navigate and prepare. It's always best to prepare for, I don't want to say the worst, but you want to prepare just in case those things happen, so you're not caught off guard. Always check, with your airlines before you go. If you happen to be a lucky one that lives close to the airport, keep checking, because 9 out of 10 times, a lot of times, the first delay comes in around the 2-hour mark of when you're supposed to actually take off, which means that people are probably either already at the airport, or if you live close by, you're certainly on your way. A lot of airlines will tell you still get there for your anticipated arrival. So what anticipated departure. But what I will tell you is, do your own due diligence, and before you get to the airport, even days before, but usually around 24 hours in advance, find out ahead of time where your flight originates from. And that will give you a good, clear idea. Is it coming from a hub? Is it coming from an area that already's got inclement weather? Are they notorious for not being on time in that particular hub? So these are all things that you wouldn't think, like, oh geez, do I have to do that? No, of course you don't have to do that, but it is a good idea to really get a handle in that type of preparation, because it happens. And perfect example was when we arrived last Friday. We had a morning flight, because I always really tell people book an early flight, preferably before noon, to make sure that you get out. And Lord and behold, our flight originated out of Cuba, Havana, Cuba. There was no inclement weathers issues at all. The flight originating from Havana was going into Fort Lauderdale. Fort Lauderdale had no issues with weather. So then it comes down to kind of the luck of the draw. Was the staff out? Were they short pilots? Which is definitely, all of these things are in our control. But I always say it's a good idea just to kind of get a feel for, like, is it going to occur? Should I be preparing extra snacks? If I've got young ones, do I have things to occupy them? If they're in diapers, do I have enough diapers? Wipes. These are things that, you can control. You can't control, the universe and the weather and pilot shortages and short staff. That's stuff that we can't control, but we can prepare to say, okay, let's make sure that we're in a comfortable spot. Maybe you need to stretch out more, so allow some extra room, especially if you have a child that may end up taking a little snooze, or that spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend that wants to take that extra snooze. So these are all good things that we have to prepare for.
So we didn't do our welcome. Good morning, everyone, and welcome.
That's okay.
Yeah, welcome to Triumph Tuesday. Today is Tuesday, December 20th, and absolutely the wind down to 5 days left, and the traveling and the hustle and bustle of the holidays. Lots to pack in, lots to kind of the sights, the sounds, the smells, of course, if you're into baking. And it's so neat to see, everybody on Facebook starting to, post the pictures of all the cookies that they baked and all the different baked goods. So it's kind of neat to see all that.
It is. And a funny thing that you say that, while we are waiting to do our baking a little bit later this year, just because of the way the schedule works out. And ironically, members of the family have already said, I haven't seen any Tupperware containers of cookies yet. What is going on? Yeah, we are waiting a little bit later than normal because there's so many people out there that bake, 10 different types 15 different types. They've got big groups, and then they divvy them up all in the family. Well, we don't bake like we used to. So we really are trying to come up with the top 3. I know we already came up with the top 2, but we're going to probably introduce a third one because, either you end up eating them or they go stale. And a lot of people say, oh, you can freeze them. They don't taste the same. I don't care what anyone says. A frozen Christmas cookie does not taste the same after it's thawed. I don't know what it is. It just doesn't.
Well, and the funny thing too with cookies is we had this big platter like of cookies and little brownies. I obviously couldn't eat it, but there was a few left. So I put them in a little bowl and they're covered, but they're hard as rock. So I go to throw them out and Gary's like, no, because he likes a cookie that's really, really hard and crispy. So you know what? That's fine. We'll keep the cookies for Gary.
Well, make sure he doesn't break a tooth.
That is right, because that would be kind of our luck. But I was almost going to have a little bit of like cut the scone in half or something. And I'm like, I am so sick of my blueberry scones right now. They are delicious, no doubt, but it just seems for the last week everybody wanted the scones, and I enjoy baking for other people, knowing that they love it and they're going to enjoy it. But I don't want to look at another scone for quite a while.
Well, speaking of baking, did you get one of them lemon cookies? The cookies I'm talking, that what I'm talking about.
Oh, well, I have to talk to Gary's sister about getting that recipe.
So you did have some.
No, I can't, because they're not, they have gluten in them. But she has made gluten-free ones before, and you would not know the difference. Some people say they do. Now with pizza, of course, like the first day, gluten-free pizza is absolutely wonderful. The second day is okay. The third day, you don't really want to. You really don't want.
We wouldn't even have pizza last the second day. I mean, usually it comes in. If it's not gone, it's gone by the morning, because a lot of people love cold pizza. I'm one of those who loves cold pizza. But I agree with you with the gluten-free crust. Some are better than others, and that's one of the sacrifices that you make when you realize, okay, I've got that sensitivity or I have that allergy. I've got to renegotiate and triumph over coming up with a new recipe that is pretty much close to the original, but making sure that the ingredients are conducive to our gut health, because who wants to be sick unnecessarily when you can help it? And that is part of the fun part about baking that I'm finding now, or even cooking, is really adapting recipes that are favorites of the family or favorites of mine, or just favorite ones that we just enjoyed over the years, and kind of switching them around and almost reinventing them, keeping that same good taste of the flavors of the season, but in a version that's tolerant to everyone's stomach, because there's so many people that have these different allergies. The other thing that's been going on, obviously, the last few weeks, and I have to say, it comes in waves. I haven't seen a year like this in a very, very long time, where so many people are really going through a loss, of a loved one. And we always talk about, like, we're not in control of that, the timing, and then you say, well, when is a good time, for someone to pass away? Well, we know that
there's never a good time.
There's never a good time unless someone is suffering, and even though it's still not a good time, you want them not to suffer. So that's a no-brainer. But so many people over the last, really since the end of November up until this particular week, people that we know, people that we're close with, are losing loved ones. And we always say, when you talk about when you lose that loved one, the first are the hardest, but it's so hard when it's so close to a major holiday. And especially a holiday such as, Christmas, Hanukkah, those are really big, big holidays for a lot of faiths, and other ones as well. And when, you go through such a sad, unimaginable, heartbreaking situation, and then knowing that, like, I still got to function, I still have Christmas coming up, especially if there's children involved, and you've got to kind of wear that double, triple hat of really embracing your grief, which you fully haven't even really accepted because it's so raw, so real, and so soon. At the same time, putting on that brave hat for the kids that, they're grieving as well, but depending on their age, they're thinking and, expecting, Santa to arrive, to, really trying to also honor that memory, and you're still trying to be festive. So one of the things that I highly suggest to people is to know that your loved one is, at peace, they're in a safe space, depending on your belief system. But what would they want? And I think you have to kind of pull yourself away from your own grief, which is very difficult to do, getting out of your own heart, getting out of your own head, and trying to really be strong to say, what would my loved one want? They would want me to make sure that, we're still enjoying the holiday as best you can. There's no easy answer. So my heart breaks for so many people. It just seems like this has been a season of a lot of loss, which we know is part of life. We know all those things, but I've never seen this many that we've personally known or been associated with in one way or another to happen this way. It's heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking, and this is for Gary and I, this is obviously been a crazy time, perhaps, and this is our second week of wake and funeral. Last week, I don't know if I had mentioned it, but Gary's mom had passed away, and she was in Maryland. So, the process of the family down there, very emotional for everyone, and getting her up here, they had to fly the body, of course. And then, this week with another family member, and then in between going to a friend's mom's wake, and then finding out that same day that one of his cousins' mother-in-law that we know very well. It's just like, what is going on? And like we said, we know that this is a part of life. And of course, everybody has different beliefs. Everybody grieves very differently. And it's just been, I think, very shocking. Very shocking.
Right. And one in particular is a woman that is the mother of our daughter's best friend. And, it's the second person that I know that have succumbed to the disease, CJD. I cannot pronounce it. You can look it up, CJD. And, it's a very debilitating, there's no cure for it. The usual time frame is 4 to 6 months. And it really starts out with, maybe a little bit of confusion, some balance issues, and then it's almost like Alzheimer or dementia, like fast forward, like to the end of someone that suffers from dementia and Alzheimer. And it's very quick, very quick. Like you really don't even have time to catch your breath. You're right in the middle of really helping that person with care. And so sadly, they really prepared her last week. She went into palliative care and passed away this Monday in, very, very short amount of time, very young, 68 years old, which we know is not old at all. And, leaves behind, I want to say she had 7 or 11 children and like 12 grandchildren. I can't remember. But very, very large Polish family. And, again, passing away Monday, and, wake is Thursday, funeral Friday. Obviously a lot has to be dictated because of the Christmas holiday, which she cherished and was very instrumental in her community with what she did for a living, as well as, just a good friend and mother and sister, daughter to so many. So, when you hear stories of like that, where it's really unexpected, sometimes these passings are, they've lived a long life, they lived a good life, and they're succumbing from it, whether it's heart issues or age, whatever it may be, their body failing. But when you hear of someone that young, and really getting the diagnosis, like, you know, October
Mm,
slash November, and boom, here we are in December, and she's already gone. Um, you don't even get that chance to catch your breath. So, you know, our hearts go out to that family. And, you know, there's just so many people. Our hearts are going out to you guys, like just so many families that
yeah.
are suffering, you know, with heartache during the holiday season. It's to way to triumph over how you have to renegotiate how you're even going to throw your holiday. Because a lot of a piece of that is really trying to find that balance, because you know you maybe will get lost with that child opening up that gift, or you start thinking of a funny memory, and then you know maybe you've had a split few seconds to not focus on the grief but focus in the moment, be in the present of the
Mm,
goodness that is around you, and then instantly comes like this guilt feeling, like I shouldn't feel that because I just lost this loved one. Such is the cycle of life. And you know, I think it's of course easier to give that advice and receive it,
mm.
because you don't know what you're feeling at any given moment. So you know, my suggestion is just go with how you feel, go with the emotion. If you know, a moment comes up where you got to break down, break down. If there's a moment that you're ready to break down, but something goofy or silly sparks this, you know, crazy laughter, go with it. You know, there's no right or wrong with grief. You just have to let it happen.
Yeah, go with the flow. And I was curious as to what CJD is, because it almost sounds like MSA, some of the attributes of that
Yes,
term illness. And I couldn't even pronounce it if I even
right.
tried.
It's
But it's
difficult.
a degenerative brain disorder that leads to dementia and death.
Yeah.
Extremely rare, fewer than 1,000 US cases per year.
Yeah, I mean, and to think that, you know, we've known two over the last few years that have passed away from it is, you know, and it usually hits like 50 and over. That's pretty much what they were saying. And I don't know what the stats are, whether it's mostly women, you know, I mean, obviously it's two women that we knew that succumbed to it, but I don't know if that's, you know, a prerequisite or not, you know, and you really don't know that you suffer from this very rare disease until you're at the onset of it. And there's no cure. There's
Yeah.
nothing that they could even, there's nothing that they can even give you to slow it down.
Right, there's no cure. It
There's
is,
no cure. It's all about making that person feel comfort, and that's it. And that's difficult, especially when they're having that wave of lucidity, where one moment they're themselves and the next minute they can't even function. So you know, you really, it's almost like you're dealt with that, you know, loved one that suffers from dementia or Alzheimer, but you do have some prep time. You do have medications out there to assist in slowing the process, and or making them comfortable with this. There's no cure. There's no medication. There's nothing. And you know, from the onset of like hearing the words that, you know, your loved one has this terminal, very fast moving disease, um, you don't even have a chance to even process it. You just don't. You just automatically go, and especially in this case, her one of her daughters is a PA, so she went right into, I'm sure, you know, medical mode, of, you know, trying to find out as much as you can. And then when she, you know, really kind of reads in between the lines and digests it because of her background, um, you realize it's flight or die, and it's a combination of both. Like you just have to start, you know, taking control and making them comfortable as possible. And you know, some have lasted, I think they said the longest patient, from a month perspective, was just under a year, but the average is between 4 to 6 months from the onset of finding out this diagnosis. So
mm,
just another very rare disease that you just don't hear about.
and and of course, obviously with the holidays, I mean, it's all also, I think, a really good time to reflect on especially what has happened these last couple of weeks. Oh my gosh, who have I not reached out to?
Right.
Even though they haven't reached out to me. Like, forget all that crap, right? Who have I not spoken to? Who do I?
Exactly.
Don't let that moment pass you by.
No, and and I think that for some is so hard because they're thinking, okay, I'm so busy, I know what I'm going through, trying to balance, whether it's workload, children load, preparation for the holidays, whether I'm hosting, not hosting, am I going, did I buy all the gifts, to also know that everyone else is kind of in the same boat, so I don't want to bug them. But what I can say to this is, what's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to say, hey, you caught me at a bad time, but guess what? You got to hear their voice. And that's all you have to say is, what? I understand I'm in the same shoes, but gosh, it feels good just to hear you, to actually hear you. Now, if you got to resort to the whole texting, I'm not a big fan of that. Because you don't hear the person's voice. But if that's the only way means of communication, do it for sure. If it's email and that's the only way of communication, do it for sure. Remember though, even with reaching out to people that way, there is a voice activation button, through email, through messaging, so they can hear your voice, even though you might not necessarily get the blessing and the present of hearing them. Because this is the only way you can reach out. Let them hear you. Let them hear how excited you were to, hey, what's going on? We haven't checked in lately. What, how's life going? After the holidays, let's try to get together, or let's, at best, let's pick up the phone and like hear each other. And I think sadly, where we keep going more fast forward with social media and devices and whatnot, we forget about hearing and hearing the person's voice at the same time listening to what they're saying, which is two different things, by the way.
Yes, we all know that. And I'm a stickler with listening and hearing.
Yes, right. And I think the funniest example I love to give about that is, sorry guys, because it happens to be mostly, it happens to everyone, so I'm not going to say it doesn't, but it happens more to men, where you can say one thing and you're lucky if they were intent enough to sit and actually absorb what you said. That's the whole listening piece. But maybe they pick out a tidbit. Well, you told me we were going, but you didn't say the time. Well, what does 5 o'clock mean? Oh, I didn't hear that part because you weren't listening. You heard the person's voice, but you really were not absorbing and listening to what the message was. So men are, I think, a little bit worse at that than women are. Yes, I went out there for a limb and said that, so don't get mad at me, men, but it's your makeup. I don't know. I don't know why that is.
Well, that is a good question, for the ages. And hey, we're going to put it out there. What have you experienced with your loved one, your significant other? Do they hear you, or do they listen to you? And what was maybe the funniest thing that ever happened as a result of that? Just this morning, Gary's on his little iPad thingy, and he's watching a video, and he's like talking to the video, like he talks out loud his thoughts. And Wendy and I were sitting there drinking our coffee, and I finally had to look at him and say, Shuddy, like, we don't want to hear, nor do we want to listen to you commenting on your video. It was just, he's like,
no, I've witnessed it when you guys were down for Thanksgiving. A couple times I'd run in, I'm like, did you ask me something? And he wouldn't respond, and then I would hear him with the continued conversation to his iPad, which I thought was hysterical. But a lot of people do that. And then to me, it's no different than like, when you're walking around the house, you're kind of talking to yourself, did I write that list out? Is there anything else I need? Going through the spice cabinet, cinnamon, nutmeg, do I have all these things? And you do. I mean, a lot of us are not only visual learners, but in order to remind ourselves of things, I think we end up talking to ourselves out loud, probably more than ever. And I wonder why. That's another good question. Why did we do that? I don't know.
That is a good question. Maybe it's the same thing. I know obviously we've always talked about journaling where it's pen to paper, and
Right.
maybe for instance just reading it out loud to ourselves. Maybe there's a more of a cement type of process, like a foundation to kind of,
The
okay,
burn.
look
Yeah.
at what I wrote and read it out loud, and how does it sound? I've even recorded myself, with different things or projects that I've been doing. And, I go back obviously and listen to it or view it, and I'm like, oh my God, I sound horrible, or let me change this around. So, I mean, I know why I do it. I mean, I don't do it on a regular basis, just saying.
Yeah, Gare. But you know what? It's maybe just a thought process where he enjoys what he's watching, and he thinks he's having a conversation. Whatever makes him happy, I suppose.
Right.
Yeah, you got to kind of go with that as well. But
True.
this is a very, very busy time. For the rest of the week, I'm gonna do intermittent lives. We've got a very hectic schedule the next week, as everyone else does. And until I really learn the ins and outs of the mechanics of our podcast, which I not, I talk about all the time. I'm not tech savvy with all that, but sadly I have to, bite the bullet and become a little bit more savvy on it. I am good at live, so we will make sure that we're still communicating with you to let you know. Chat about Wellness Wednesday, Trending Thursday, and of course, Fantabulous Friday, which leads us into the glorious of the Christian holiday of Christmas. And you've got Hanukkah. Like, there's just so many different good things coming up. And then of course you kind of unwind from that, and you don't have much time to unwind, and we're already talking about the countdown to the new year. So as we talked about several times since October, as soon as really that Halloween holiday hits, you blink and you're already towards New Year's. And that's exactly what we're experiencing now. And when you think about that, you think of, we're almost at the all of November, all of December, a good 3 full months. That really a blink of an eye in 3 months. And I think people are starting to realize, and it's a frequent thing that does happen around the holidays too, is you realize how time is so precious, and time is not, it's not a given for anyone. We're all on an expiration. We're all on an expiration date. So what are we going to do to make sure that we, before we expire, before that, untimely, whatever happens, that we are putting out our best effort, that we're trying to make sure that we're connecting with the people that mean the most to us, but also still impacting other people that we might, come into our lives that are unexpected gifts. So, I think we kind of realize that, as we wind down the year, and then, feverishly pick up that upbeatness that, the holidays give us, which will endure us into the new year.
Yes, absolutely. And I just want to share a little tidbit because I thought this was a very interesting question. Someone asked me on, for instance, TwoSistas, or, like Triumph Tuesday, why I have the words together. And I thought that was a great question. And that stems from how I learned how to write as a child. I don't know how to cursive write, but it was easier for me to put words together as I would write out a report or something. Then of course I had to go back and reformat it so two words weren't together. So that is where that comes from. And I just wanted to share that. That has nothing to do with anything, of course.
No, and from my perspective, it's being in the technology era that we are, we hashtag all the time. And for when we really came up with this format, for me, it was really about having a definitive hashtag for each day, which really helps with that mindset. To me, the hashtag is almost like a bullet point of what day it is, and to lead it with true intention, like it's emphasized, like it's bold, and that's for me. With a hashtag, that's the importance of it. It's almost like an asterisk, boldness, that I have to be intentional with that that spirit, that mindset of what those words really are. And to me, it's just a great format. We love doing it that way. It leads us, each hashtag double word brings us to, that much step closer to the goals that we set out for, not only for ourselves, but that we really share with all of you to get your work done, to get your healthy in, to get your vibe on, to make sure you got that clarity, that great mindset, and really the tenacity and the energy, to really put yourself and your health and wellness first and foremost. Because if we don't do that and we don't share that passion with each other, who's going to do it for us? I mean, we are definitely in charge of who we are, and we're in charge of our health and our wellness and our mindset. So we love our format. We're excited. And with that, we wish you a great Merry Christmas. Obviously, Christmas falls on a Sunday, so this weekend's going to be a very, very busy weekend for a lot of people. Just make sure that you slow down, enjoy the flavors of the season, enjoy the music, the spirit, the giving, and let that somehow, if you're going through a very sad piece of your life right now, let that just flow over you. Even the tears of joy, the tears of sadness, it is all part of, because even a lot of people that don't have a direct loss, like a fresh loss, still mourn all those loved ones that were not. And there's one song, I think it's by Bing Crosby, that always kind of gives me that chills. If the fates allow, oh wait a minute, hold on. Have yourself a very Merry Christmas. And it kind of goes through that emotion of, if fate allows us, to continually be together, and then a reflection of those that we lost. So, the rawness doesn't have to be the only thing that inspires that kind of that sad feeling. It is part of the holiday, but don't let it overcome you. Try to do the best you can by acknowledging it, because you don't want to bury it. You don't want to just put it aside. Embrace it, validate it, because it's real.
Yes. And, thank you so much for sharing that. And on that note, we do wish you a very Merry Christmas, and reach out to your loved ones, hear their voices, and engage in such a way that creates that special memory for you. My name is Janice, aka Wellness Diva 5.0, and I am with
TwoSistas, and this is Carroll-Sue, aka Naughty Boss. One last little tidbit: the best present you can give is being in the present. I will go periodically live from now until the weekend, but we wish you a Merry Christmas, and we will be on next week to talk about how we're going to get through and really impact ourselves in the new year. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
for now.